My name is Phil Valentine. Uh, I have been in recovery since December 28th, 1987. So working on my 36th year of recovery. Man, has time flown. That just seems like I got into recovery a few weeks ago sometimes. And by my behavior, people would say that too. So, um, anyway, I have shown improvement over those 35 years, I would like to think anyway. I'm also the executive director of the Connecticut Community for Addiction Recovery. I've been with CCAR for 24 years, started in January of 1999. And we are here today to do coaching for coaches, also known in our recovery community centers as recovery coach performance support. I pick a topic that we kind of explore in more detail. Usually there's no right or wrong answers. It's just a discussion to figure out, to maybe think about something that we haven't thought about before. And so I'd like to have people, it doesn't have to be everybody, but I'd like a few of you to introduce yourselves to the Zoom group here. And I would like you to, your name, where you're from, and I'd like you to talk about something that you did not want to do, but you did it anyway. And what was the result? And some people think that could be negative, that could be positive. It's up to you how you want to frame that. So I'll lead. And sometimes I think about my early days in recovery of not wanting to go to like a 12-step meeting, or then later on when we were very active in church, not wanting to go to church. And it was almost like this spiritual nudge inside that was like just resistant, didn't want to go. It was not just inconvenient. And I went, and it usually ended up benefiting me in some way, where I heard something that was really powerful, really meaningful, that I was supposed to do that. And then I was thinking about what we were going to do today. And I'm on this, like, since I've turned 60, I turned 63 last October. And you start to realize that, you want to be as mobile and flexible as you can for the rest of, well, at least I do, for the rest of my life. And so I've embarked on this whole yoga thing, and I've done I'd have to look, but it's probably around 120, 130 days in a row of like this 20-minute stretching yoga, easy old man yoga, right? So, but I've seen improvement. I mean, even like when I'm sitting in my kayak, right? I know this is really like high level problems, but I used to have the fishing rod in the back rod holder, and I have to like strain to go get it, right? Just to twist and turn that way. Now I can just go, whoop, there's the rod. And I go, hey, that was easy. I was like, wow, that was pretty cool. And, like picking things up off the floor without like hurting something, I can do that now too. And that's always good. So, hey, life is good now. I couldn't even do plank on elbows. Like I just started swearing as they tell me to do plank on elbows. Now, even with one foot in the air for like all of 12, 15 seconds, yes, I can do that now. So I'm on my way. So getting back to I went on this rant. So what I was talking about was this morning, it was time. I set an alarm to do my 20-minute yoga session. And I was like, I don't want to do it. But I did it anyway. And I feel better. It's just one of those things. See, I always got to remember that I'm going to feel better after I do some of these things. Plus, I didn't want to like break my streak either. I had a streak going. So would anybody like to introduce themselves, where you're from, and something that you didn't want to do, but you did it anyway? And what was the result?
Hey, I'll start us off. I'm Carver Brown. I'm from Jackson, Mississippi.
Hello, Carver. Good to see you as always, my friend.
Oh, good to see you, Phil. I didn't want to, I'm from Jackson, Mississippi. I did not want to go to Hartford, Connecticut in February and meet Phil Valentine and Art Woodard. Little
Yeah.
know they were going to close the roads one day in the middle of the training, and we were going to be stuck in this hotel with carpet like the Overlook out of a bad Stephen King novel. And but the result was I met Phil and I
Mhm,
met Art. And
mhm.
it really was a trajectory change for me and allowed me to be able to support people in a way that just it propelled me into a way to support people that I didn't imagine. I just didn't know. And I got skills and I got to practice skills and I came away better for it. So that's mine.
Thank you, Carver. Anybody else? So this is the part where one of you or two or three of you, you have this little mouse thing or you got a touchpad and you scroll down to this thing that says reactions and you raise your hand like this. And then like Charlotte did, so I can call on Charlotte. Thank you, Charlotte.
My name is Charlotte Reeves, and I am from Surrey County, North Carolina, which we're right on the border of Virginia. So it's, I guess, northwestern part. But we're kind of at the end of the Piedmont area.
Mhm.
So one of the things that I think, like going to work and working all day and getting tired and being lazy, and I had a daughter when I was older, so she's 16, but going to do her Girl Scout things. And I always like dread it to go because I had to drive and it's a big thing. But every time I do, I really appreciate being around youth, which I love being around youth. I work in prevention here, and how much energy they give you, and then the revitalization of families. And forgive me for saying this, y'all, but y'all will understand, like more normal people,
Mhm.
in community. So I always feel really empowered from doing those types of activities.
Thanks, Charlotte. Somebody else. Scroll down. Thank you, Kurt.
Are we doing introductions?
We're doing, not everybody has to introduce themselves, but people who raise their hand, introduce yourself and talk about something you didn't want to do, but you did it anyway and what happened.
Oh, great idea. I came in late, so I didn't know.
Okay.
So my name is Kurt. It's actually Kurt, but people struggle to pronounce, so Kurt is fine. I'm from the Netherlands, and what I didn't want to do but did do. Oh yeah, that's a big one. And my last relationship.
Oh. And what was the outcome for you?
The outcome was it was what I needed for my recovery.
Okay. Thank you. That's a great example. Michael, I'm gonna put you on the spot.
Something that I didn't want to do and I did
Yeah.
was going to C-Car.
But did you introduce yourself?
No, I didn't. My name is Michael Serrano, and I'm a person in long-term recovery. For me, that means I haven't used a mind-altering substance since October 1st, 2014. Been with C-Car for 6 years. And something I didn't want to do was go to C-Car at first, right? I never found myself in front of the house. And the first time I entered, right? And it was an hour, it was like an hour past the time I was said that I was gonna be there. And then I was using all these excuses, but then I entered and it changed my life because I learned so much and I've met so many people throughout these 6 years, right? And it was a transformation. It was a big transfer. I was just talking to somebody yesterday about it. They hadn't seen me for about 5 years. And he was honest to me by saying, I thought you was locked up. And I was like, nah, man.
They
I
didn't
said,
catch
I'm
me.
outside. Yeah, I was too fast. I was like the gingerbread man. But yeah, it was so funny to hear that, because I was like, nah. And then he connected with me. And he was like, man, seeing all this stuff that I'm doing, and it's just motivating to him. So something I didn't want to do that I did, and I'm glad I did, because I would have not been sitting in the Zoom room with all these faces looking at me, hearing my story.
Yeah. Thank you,
Thanks.
Michael.
You're welcome.
Michelle, good to see you. I consider you a friend and a peer. You know why I consider you a peer? Well, you're muted. I consider you a peer because we're of the same age. Except
knew
you
you
look a
would
lot
say
better
that.
than I do.
No, that's not true. Like, listen, when you get to be our age, every day is a new adventure, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Michelle Harder, woman in long-term recovery, in recovery, continuous recovery since July 5th, 1994. And even though my life isn't pretty calm right now, every day is better than before July 5th, 1994. And I am from Rhode Island, executive director of Harder Recovery Consulting. And there you go. The first thing that came to my mind when you said that was acceptance of my mom's death. I did not want to accept that she was gone. Not even one little bit, and kept waiting for her to walk through the door, to the point where my mental health was really being affected by it. You know, I'd spend days like looking at the doors, you know, and in turn, I didn't want to go to grief counseling. You know, I did not want to go to grief. I've been in so much counseling in my life. I just didn't want to go again. Right. And I am so glad and grateful that I did, because I was able to get rid of some stuff that I didn't need to carry around with me anymore. And I was able to stop watching doorways to see if my mother was going to walk through them. So I'm a little bit saner. I don't know that I'll ever be completely sane, but that's okay.
Thank you. Cindy. You're muted still.
Okay, there we go. I'm Cindy Shaw. I'm in New Canaan, Connecticut. That's where our office is. I'm in long-term recovery as well. Very grateful to be here with all of you. I moved. I had been in the same apartment for about, I don't know, 12 years. It was where I had lived when I started my recovery journey. I have very unresponsive landlords who didn't shovel snow. Half the apartment didn't have electrical outlets that didn't work. Couldn't adjust the temperature in the winter. It was like living in the Arctic. It was just so many things were wrong with the apartment, but I had always felt safe there, and I was really scared to leave. Also, my beloved John, who passed away in September, he and I had lived there forever. And so really hard for me to leave that space. And my kids were nudging me, everyone was nudging me. And finally, I did just move. And it was really hard, and I sort of didn't want to, but I am so happy that I did. I'm in a bright new space. Everything works. Something breaks, I can call my landlord and go, please come fix this. And the energy in this apartment is just very different for me. And there's a lot of light. And I'm just so happy that I did it, but I was terrified to do it and really didn't want to. So, yes.
Thank you. Great example. Anybody else want to introduce themselves to the group and talk about a time they didn't want to do something, but they did it anyway, and what was the outcome? Let's have a couple more. Thank you, Lisa. Good to see you. You're muted though still.
You got it. Thank you for the book. Continue.
Yeah.
I loved it. I absolutely loved it. And I keep saying I have to, I'm sorry, I haven't emailed you to say thank you so much. And really, really liked it. I've
Thank
been
you.
with my husband now to let's go hike the Appalachian Trail. I said, we can do this, honey. And he just looks at me and goes, no.
No.
So yeah, I'm excited about that, but he doesn't know. But I'm Lisa Ferguson. I'm from Madison, Connecticut, and I guess it's just raising my hand.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's scary to me. Getting sober was probably though the scariest thing I've ever done. Because I had no idea. I was both excited and scared. And probably 5 more emotions went with that. But at that time, it was absolutely terrifying to walk into my first AA meeting and sit down. And I had to use the ladies' room, and I was terrified to get up out of my seat. And I went to the meeting anyway, and I got up and I had to say, excuse me, pardon me. And it was just terrifying. But the results of how much goodness came from the whole thing are it would be an understatement to say good came from that, because it was life itself. There's just nothing that could change that being the scariest thing I've ever done and the best thing I've ever done. So
thank you, Lisa.
Yep.
Sharon, good to see you.
Good morning. Thank you. I'm kind of hopping on in between meetings, so it's good to be here. The scariest thing that I have ever done was to start to purge my home. I've lived in my residence for 30 years, and I've raised my family and my grandchildren or child, and my mother passed away here, and it's the family home. And I have started to purge everything that everybody has left behind. I'm the only one in the home. I have a lot of stuff to purge, and it's very scary. Going through boxes and just that cleansing process, I never thought I would be able to do alone, and I'm doing it alone. It's taken chunks of time. It's not all at once, kind of like recovery. You do a little bit and then you kind of stop and you're on that happy, and then you realize you got to keep going and peel away more onion. And that's exactly what this is. And every time I give something away or throw something away or shred something, I feel 10 pounds lighter. Although I don't look it, I just feel it. So it's been a very scary process.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Another wonderful example. Thank you. Hi, Shelley.
Good morning. Good morning, friends. Great to be here. It's 7 a.m. here, and I'm not much of a morning person. So this is actually, I will say, I didn't want to get out of bed to jump on, and I haven't had a chance to put my eyes on. I know you girls understand. So I didn't want to put my video on. But yeah, thank you. I am a woman in long-term recovery. I've been sober from alcohol since October 25th, 1995. And yeah, I am here in just outside of Vancouver, BC, Canada. So I'm on the PST time zone. It was something that someone else had shared, just kind of made me think of an experience I had a couple of days ago. My 21-year-old son is also moving house, and just temporarily he's moving into the home of his friend who passed away in February of this year.
Oh, wow.
It was a tragic death. He was electrocuted on a beach in Peru. Anyway, and this was my son's like very best friend, the one that he could really open up to. My son suffers with anxiety and depression and also some digestive health issues. And this friend had all those things too, but had struck out and finally made this big trip to Peru that he had planned for and tragically died. So my son is moving in with his mom for a few months. And I brought him there on Wednesday. And the house, I can't imagine losing my son, but the house was like a house of pain. She wasn't there, but I could see, it's like a shrine set up for her son, and the pain was just palpable, just being there, even in the home. And I know my son is carrying that pain as well. So it was all I could do to leave him there, knowing that he was going to be wrapped up in that pain, at least for a few months. So, yeah, that was the hard thing that I had to do this week, but trusting him to make his own decisions.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Thank you. Thank you, Shelley.
Thank you.
Reggie.
Good morning. My name is Reggie James. I operate in both New York and New Jersey. I am the founder of Revision, which is training, recovery coach training company, best practice trainers for New York State, and also the founder of Revision House, which is a 10-bed sober living facility and we house reintegration men in Hudson County. We have a contract with Hudson County. So I was, I belong to an organization by the name of Brothers in Recovery that started in 1988. I started my recovery journey in 1987. Once I, took, the initial RCA training, that was life-changing for me. And I made some decisions in terms of what I was going to do with the rest of my life. And so one of the things that doing all of this work and understanding there was so much more to recovery than 12-step, which most of the people from Brothers in Recovery are in, either AA or NA. I wanted to develop a certified national peer workforce because we're a national 501c3. And so I had the board, I got elected as the chairman, and the organization was a good organization. They started as a spiritual retreat, weekend retreats. And, we have a radio station, which I founded some years ago, and we do things in the community, but nothing really impactful, I feel, and I thought the timing was perfect. And, I got pushback, although I won 3-1, the chairmanship, and people wanted to go in a different direction. When you get there and you realize either people didn't have the skill set or they didn't have the energy, because as I said, the organization started in 1987. I said, in order to attract younger men, we have to be open to, new ways of thinking about recovery. And there were some pundits that just didn't want to do it and didn't want to get it. It's kind of like our political parties. There's a percentage of people that just push back. They don't have any ideas, but they don't want your ideas. And so my term was for 3 years with a 3-year renewable. And at the end of the, when it was 3 months before my 3-year term, I realized that this was just not going the direction that, that I had envisioned and that we had envisioned. So I just didn't, not that I resigned, but I just didn't run for, I just finished my term at that time, at the end of last year. And it was the best decision I could make, because when I think about the amount of pressure and people not following through, because no one's getting paid, it's a volunteer agency. And, we had started contracting, I wanted to contract with law enforcement, with the courts, with insurance companies, and we was getting our first contract at the beginning of 2020 with the courts. But then the pandemic came. Everything changed. Everything changed in New York and around the world. So sometimes I learned that you got to know when to fold. You have to understand
the Kenny Rogers song, right? No one to hold them, no one to fold them.
That's it.
Thank you, Reggie.
Okay.
All right. So when you guys talked about not wanting to do something, what would you describe that as? And you can just kind of jump in and say, what's a word you would use that when you don't want to do something? What is that?
Resistance.
Carver, I didn't plant you or anything. That's exactly the word I'm looking for, is resistance. What are some of the emotions behind resistance?
Fear.
Fear. What else?
Regret.
Regret.
Sadness.
Failure.
Loss.
Ambivalence.
Loss. Ambivalence.
Shame.
Change. When
Shame.
you shame got you. And there's change as well, resistance to change, which might have something to do with fear. What's the opposite of resistance?
Acceptance.
Acceptance.
Resilience.
Resilience.
Success.
Success.
Courage.
Willingness.
Courage. Willingness. So sometimes we talk about the way you framed it, that oftentimes resistance is seen as like negative, right? What are ways to frame resistance as positive? What are we taught to resist?
Protective.
Protective, right? So what are we taught to resist?
Things that would harm us.
Yeah. I think like in my Bible teaching, they talk about resisting temptation, right? Whatever that might be. How do you resist temptation? Yeah. When you, many of us here, I have no idea, but many of us here are in recovery. We were probably addicted to a substance or two or something, but were you resistant when you were using? So some of you said yes. So talk to me about what you were resisting.
I was resistant to recovery. I was resistant to the ideas of change.
Did you know about recovery and all that and change?
No, I knew about change, but not recovery. But it was just suggested that what I was doing was harmful. And so the suggestion was, you need to do something different. You need to, and I was just, I would then turn the energy toward the other person.
Yeah. Charlotte, did you want to say something about being resistant?
I was just, it was just the change. Like he said it. So I was just resistant. You know why though? I think it was I didn't want to admit that I couldn't figure out a way to make it work. And also that it was hard. that it was hard.
Yeah.
It was too
that-
hard.
That was a great piece of self-awareness. I love that. Kurt.
I think I was resisting life and more specifically pain.
Ooh, so you know that the things you were taking were helping you deal with the pain. And so you were resisting.
Maybe not deal with it, but
Yeah.
I
Yeah,
came
well,
in to actually
I
deal with it.
yeah, I can relate to that. Thank you, Cindy.
So much like what Kurt said, I was going to say, I was resistant to let go of what I thought was working.
Yeah, we thought was working. That's a great point too. Thank you, Shelley.
I was just thinking about how often you know, in that period of time where I really struggled for a couple of years, going back and forth between recovery and actively using, that there was that period of being resistant to change, but also hating being the same. You know, like
Mhm.
both factors were at work for me. So and it's a terrible place of tension where, you
Yes.
know, there's just, you know, I think you know, they call it restless, irritable discontent, like nothing was making me happy.
Yeah, that's a great point. Thank you. I appreciate that, Reggie.
Yeah, I was resistant, not just the substances, but the lifestyle, the underworld. You know, I lived in the underworld. I, you know, did a lot of things that lived on the edge. You know, I'm high risk, and you know, I missed that. That was part of it.
So you were resistant to leave that world, or
Yes.
it got you? Yeah, that makes sense too. Robert.
I was resistant to accept the fact that I was worth being loved.
Oh, well, that's a pretty deep thing right there. Yeah, thank you for that. Appreciate that. Hi, Khalees. We were just talking about things that when we were actively using what we were resisting. That's all we were talking about. And so now I want to ask you a different question. What do you resist today? And give me some examples. What do you resist today?
Donuts.
I'm on par with you. I mean, almost 2 years ago, Sandy and I, well, Sandy had done it for a while. Sandy's my wife. We are now trying to be sugar free and gluten, like white flour free. Man, I have to resist things every day, like donuts. Yeah, for sure. Alex, good to see you. What are you resisting today?
I'm going through it right now because unfortunately, you know, things happen. Your life changes upside down right away. My daughter had like a serious car accident.
Oh my gosh, I'm so
She's in the
sorry.
hospital. Yeah, she's recovering, but it's gonna be a while. She broke her spleen and ribs and and then one of my grandkids, one broke his leg all the way to the thing. So I don't want to say we got stuck because that's a bad word. Yeah, I want to thank God, my bad grandfather. But you know, they home with us,
Yeah.
and all my kids are all grown up, and like my youngest daughter's 14, so she can raise herself. And now I have two little angels, and they're very needy. And you know, I'm at an age, I don't feel old, but I'm at an age where my life has been, it's smooth sailing right now, right? So now my world's upside down because we all have to take turns and everything like that. And as much as I love them, like I really do, but right now I finding that resistance a little difficult on my peace of mind because you know they require a lot for you. And sometimes I gotta tell my wife, I'm like, listen, man, I gotta go work out, I gotta go do something.
Yeah.
Because it's not easy when you're already accustomed to doing certain things and now all of a sudden this new wrench just got thrown in your life and you just got to deal with it, right? You just got to go ahead and deal with it. So I'm gonna be honest, it's been a little difficult for me to adjust, to try to get them to our rhythm, right?
Right.
They're
Yeah.
a certain rhythm, so that's
Yeah.
what I'm going through. But God is good, so I guess he wanted me to learn some more patience, and I guess this is the way to kind of teaching me how to probably gain more patience, or maybe I needed some more.
Right. Thank you, Alex. That's a great example. Khalees.
This is a great topic. Sorry I'm late.
Mhm.
I feel like I can think about a lot of things that I've tried to resist, but whenever I was thinking about things I resist, it's nice to see that I've actually worked through some of those things, because at first I was going to list some things, but I've worked through them. But I think today what I'm working on is resisting attaching my emotions to everything. Not everything has to be emotional, where I'm learning to detach my emotions from the facts or certain people or conversations.
Yeah, that's a great point. I have not to the degree of Alex, but there's been pain in my family's life recently too. I mean, Joshua and Madeline, my oldest son and his wife, adopted a newborn, and on the mother signed over rights, family members had 20 days, and on the 20th day, the 18-year-old father filed for custody, and the following day they had to give the baby up that had been with them for 26 days. So there's a lot of pain associated with them because of that, but also because of the pain that they're in, associated with that. And then my daughter is now, her job in Peru got rescinded. So she went from Peru to Providence, and she's going to be teaching a Title I school in Providence, Rhode Island. So she and Sandy are going to be living in our Rhode Island little cottage. So it's all shift and change. And I find too, I think what Alex brought home for me was, I still resist diving. I know, like, if I go into thinking about Levi and being taken away, that there's pain there and sorrow. So I start to go in there, and I resist going fully in there and back out the other way and say, let's go do something else, and I don't know if that's what you're talking about too, a little bit, Khalees, about not trying to just sort through those emotions associated with events that happen. So those are great, great examples. Anybody else? What are you resisting today? Michael, what are you resisting today?
I'm sitting here trying to really think what I'm resisting, and the thing that keeps popping in my head was my baby's leaving to college, and
yeah.
I'm having a hard time with that. And I took the day that she is gonna move out. I took that day off and the 2 days before that, so I can spend some time with her.
Yeah.
But it's like I'm feeling like I need to spend more time with her, right? And it's like, the more I think about it, so I'm dealing with that, and
yeah. Yep. Anybody else? Yeah, Michelle.
Michael, they come back. They come back, they
Yeah.
stay for a long time, and
Yeah.
you
No,
start
don't say
doing
that.
this.
No.
Right?
Thanks.
I'm really resistant to getting old. I am, and
Yeah, me too. Holy
yeah,
crap. That's funny.
so I'm resistant to getting up and putting my feet on the ground in the morning, and the lower half of my extremities don't want to move as easily as they did several days before. And I'm resistant to doctors because every time I go, there's something else I've got to deal with, right?
Yeah.
And so I'm right now, I'm resistant to the aging process, man. And what's to come. No, I don't want to go there. I do not want to go there. So talking about trying to be sugar-free and white flour free, and and, you know, maybe a little bit more plant-based. And so that's on my agenda, and I'm not resistant to that, but my husband is. So
Yeah.
that makes it a little bit more difficult, but hey, you know, some things you just can't change, right?
Well, yeah, it was an experiment. It was an experiment for me because I think somebody's, I don't know, maybe we need to mute somewhere. I don't know why that happened, but it was an experiment for me. And then I realized I just felt so much better. All the inflammation went down, like in my throat and my joints. It was like, well, what is the price to pay for, you know, eating that? And I don't want to pay that price anymore. So that's all it was for me. It's just that I felt better. And I also think that I love what you said about resisting the aging process, because since my parents died last year, I I've been wrestling with stuff, wrestling with a lot of things, like my purpose, my meaning in life, like, and I've been wrestling with dying. You know, I know you
Right.
didn't want to say that, but
No, but that's exactly what it is. Like, wait a minute, my mother is 67 years old. I'm not 67 years old.
yeah, right.
You know, and you know, and then the trying to accept the fact that your mortality is a lot closer
Than it ever
it's
was.
ever been. And 20 years, if that's what I have, probably not, but 20 years is not a long time in the scheme of things, right? It's going to go
No.
by in a flash. So
Yeah.
I'm just resistant to the whole damn thing.
You and I are brother and sister in that's for sure, Michelle. I've been resisting that. And I don't know, I guess there does come a point where you accept death, but I don't know how, you know. But
Yeah,
anyway.
you know, I guess you know, when I said it before and I thought afterwards, I haven't really accepted it. Like, I'm still pretty upset about it, but I've accepted the fact that she's not coming back.
Right.
And they're
Yeah.
actually two different things. So yeah.
Gotcha. All right. So we're talking a lot about resistance. What does resistance have to do with recovery coaching? Why did I bring this up? Thoughts about it? Please.
I mean, there's a lot of points here. So, you know, like,
Yeah.
so, I mean, my first ones are treating the person like a resource. I've seen coaches who think that they know what is best.
Mhm.
We can talk about many pathways of recovery, you know, trying to resist your recovery from like doing their own thing and exploring pathways that might not agree with you. I just did spirituality again, and it was so interesting because I see a recovery coach and I discovered my coach's spiritual belief without her telling me. And I was like, man, she has not influenced me at all with her personal spirituality beliefs. And I think that's so beautiful, the fact that she's able to coach me and not influence me. So that spirituality can come into it too. Just, I don't, like I was saying, there's so many possibilities, but I'll stop there.
Those are great. Thank you. Shelley.
No, I think the first thing that comes to my mind is just the ability to really just walk with someone, not dragging. I often see people out with a dog walking, and they're literally pulling the dog, you know, by the leash, and the dog is totally hunched down and like just refuses, right?
Resistant.
Totally resistant dog. But I was thinking about how, you know, when I'm with someone and, you know, offering that empathy, you know, if they're resistant, if they're rebellious, if they're not wanting to do something, how powerful it can be to just rest with them there and just be with them, offer that safe space for them to just be resistant. Okay, it sounds like you're resistant to this idea right now. Without trying to poke and prod and drag and you know, do those things, or feeling like you're not successful. I'm not successful as a coach, or you know, just recognizing that there is a process and it may not be on my timeline, and not to hit the panic button. It'll be okay, right? So and when I can impart that for them, then they have, that to me is fertile ground for them to grow, for them to get over that obstacle, just resting wherever they need to be.
Mm. Thank you for that. The analogy, I could see the picture of the dog like resisting being led, or you had to pull the dog along. But there's also there are dogs that love to pull against the leash, and they pull you. And I discovered many years ago that like Siberian Husky sled dogs, they live to pull, they live for that resistance. So it's like, it's a both and, right? There's however you want to
Yes.
look at that. Yeah. Charlotte.
Both directions.
Right. Charlotte.
I totally understand what she's saying about the pulling,
Mhm.
because I'm one of those naturally rebellious people, it seems like. However, I also have learned, and it kind of created in my own mind this challenge, because there are so many things you can do depending on the individual. It's like almost like a contest to see, things that will kind of get them out of there, that will lead them, that will pull them, but it's not, in the same perspective. It's more like, I want to do what you're doing, like that. And that is I had so many people pulling me and beat me over the head and everything else to get me to do the right thing and to get me moving, and none of it worked. But the one that I did have, it was like, I want his life. I want to be like him, and that is what got me to move forward and to follow his lead. And so I've always thought that was beautiful. And I want to be like that for people. Like they want to see, like, I love my life, or, I want them to say, I love your life. I want to have something like that. Not necessarily what I have, but, they want to have that too.
Yeah, gotcha. Thank you. What does resistance have to do with recovery coaching? Sharon.
So for me, when I'm listening to everybody, I'm thinking that, I've worked with recoverees who are just resistant about their own personal change and their own they don't want recovery yet. They think they do, but all their actions don't, but they keep coming back. And so they're in that flux, and just someone else had said it, being on that journey with them and being that person who's staying in their lane, allowing them to be who they are, and they can keep coming back, knowing that I'm still there, that whatever they do, it's their choice. And to still encourage and be kind to them, because that's not what they're used to. So it's really gotten me thinking. Thank you.
Thank you. Lisa.
Thanks, Phil. I feel like I work with resistance on a regular basis, and I don't really look at it as resistance. I look at it as there's some kind of hurt underneath it. And so I always let them know that their feelings are valid. I want them to feel like they're in control. And so their feelings are valid. They have the right to feel whatever they want to feel, that they're being heard. And then I'll just ask them, so what does it has everything to do with coaching, because if I can manage that much, then they're more likely to change. They're not going to stop resisting if they don't feel like they're in control. They're not going to stop resisting if they don't feel like they're heard and loved and honored for how they feel and where their heart and hurt and everything else that goes along with that is. And so for me, it's just it's being there, like you guys say the term of using them as a resource. They're it. They're the bomb. And so yeah, and then my job is simply giving them the door, opening the door with them, so that they can see there are options.
Thank
And
you.
a little more reality sometimes.
That's good stuff. Thank you, Lisa. Michelle.
So when you were talking about Siberian Huskies and I had one of them, well, her name was Honey. Actually I had two of them and the other one was Spike. And both of them almost ripped my arm out of the socket on many occasions. However, they're pretty stubborn as well and can sit on the ground and you can't pull them no matter what you do. Total resistance, right? And I had a vision of trying to drag someone into recovery. And that's what it's like. That's what it's like, trying to pull that dog from that sitting position and doesn't want to move. And I remember somebody said to me once, you can't drag people into recovery. And I believe that there has to be some kind of.
That's in the RCA.
Oh, is it? Well, maybe
Yeah.
that's where I heard it.
Yeah.
It was so long ago, though. I don't know.
Well,
It's been a long time. Yeah. So you can't drag people into recovery. Is resistance part of recovery coaching? I think it is all the time. And now I haven't done direct work in a long time, but you know, I talk about this a lot, that if somebody is resistant to any part of recovery, whether it's stopping using or building new relationships or having to go back to work or whatever, they're just resistant, sometimes resistant to all of that, or even just one piece of it. So I find that what helps me is treating them as their own resource, like you said, like the Academy says, like we all do, treating them as their own resource. They're going to tell you what they're resistant to. It's not going to be that yes and no. They're going to tell you if you, utilize the three-legged stool and ask those good questions. They'll tell you what they're resistant to, and then you can, kind of jump in the conversation from that angle. But I've got that vision of the leash, and it's terrible vision of the leash, and one particular person in my life at the end of that leash, just like holding on for dear life,
Right. Well, there's also sometimes there's the recoveries that if we're using the dog walking analogy, they're the ones that rip your arm out of its socket because they just want to go, and sometimes you just have to let the leash go and say, go have a nice run, see where it goes. Yeah, right.
Who am I to interrupt God's work?
Or, yeah, exactly. So there's also an analogy too that, if say you're a merchant marine and you're a captain of a ship and you have to get from one port to the another, and the weather forecast is talking about a huge storm, what are the captain's options? There is stop, turn around, right? Which is probably not practical. They could avoid the storm, and they could decide that because of deadlines and the severity of the storm and the seaworthiness of the ship, they're gonna go for it. They're gonna sail through the storm as the most direct route. Talk to me about the difference between resistance and avoidance. Shelley, did you just raise your hand, or was that from before?
It was from before.
Okay.
I was thinking though, in response to your,
Mhm.
I was thinking about just anchoring,
Ah, yeah.
and
Mhm.
anchoring and sort of waiting out the storm. And actually, what I was, the reason why I had my hand up earlier, I was just going to invite if anyone would like to try this in terms of resistance and what that looks like. If you make a fist and hold it as tight as you can, and take your other hand and push on that as hard as you can. And then the invitation is keep that fist really strong, and instead just leave it now on top of an open, supportive hand. And then notice what happens to that fist almost naturally.
That's pretty weird, dude.
So that fist, it may still be a fist, but it naturally begins to relax.
It does.
And that's so in terms of recovery coaching, this open hand is that supportive recovery coach without an agenda, without pushing back.
Mm-hmm.
So I just wanted to share
that's
that.
pretty cool. Cindy loves that kind of stuff for sure. Lisa, you had your hand up about resistance and avoidance. What's the difference?
I'm so good at both. So avoidance for me is I'm walking away. I'll just glance down, leave it on the table, whatever it is. I'm not going to address it in any way, shape, or form. It's going to nag at me. Yeah. And resistance is when I don't want to do something. I usually don't complain about it, but I might grumble to my husband a little bit. But I'll do it, even though I don't want to. And I may not give it my all, but I'll do it.
Okay.
And that's the difference for me. And I'm very sorry. I have to go. I wish I didn't, because I'm really enjoying this.
Well, thank you for your participation. I appreciate you. Have a great day.
Thank you guys for being all you.
Where in the Recovery Coach Academy, when we talk about where in the Recovery Coaching Academy is resistance specifically mentioned?
Roll with it.
Carver, you're right there. And what part of where is that under? Do you remember? Roll with resistance is part of what?
Motivational interview.
Yes, there you go. Closely related to avoid argument, which so there's roll with resistance and then that term avoidance. So what does it mean? Because we don't explore this in real detail in the Recovery Coach Academy. What does it mean to roll with? What imagery do you come up with when you think about roll with resistance? Help us with that. What's that mean? Well, Michelle, you're the only one unmuted, so I got to call on you then.
I was debating. So rolling with resistance is something that is just for me a major part of recovery coaching, as is that motivational interviewing process, right? So rolling with resistance for me usually entails asking those good questions to get them to tell you what they need or want to tell you without pushback, like you just accept it. I don't know, you kind of like grab that person's motivation to change, right?
Right. But you haven't hit the roll with part yet.
Yeah, I know. And that's why I didn't raise my hand.
All right. So we'll go with Charlotte. She has her hand raised, then Bianca.
To me, the role with it is an opportunity for discussion about it. And I mean, like, I haven't taken the academy class yet, but
Mhm.
anyway. But you know, sometimes one of our interventions is suicide prevention here, and nobody ever wants to talk about that. But when you start talking about it, that's what you're supposed to do with people. And you know, every time I've done that, and it just, the conversation starts to just come out, just like lava flowing from some kind of seismic event, you know. So I just believe that it's an opportunity, and they'll stumble upon it, you know. That's best way I know to
Alright.
put it.
Okay. What does roll with mean for you, Bianca?
Hi everyone. So for me, it means a bit similar to, was it Charlotte, you know, having that conversation when someone's coming up with resistance, and rather than me feeling like I need to object or challenge them around their resistance, just let them talk into it, like go along with it, agree with it, you know, extract more information about what is your resistance. For me, that is rolling with it, because you know, through that, they're providing me with information. And at some point, I'm going to hopefully be able to support them to actually flip side that resistance, you know, to maybe into the solution and into the motivational aspect of what they might be able to do based on what it is they're sharing about their resistance.
Okay, thank you. Reggie.
Yeah, to me, it means don't get to the point where it becomes argumentative or confrontational. You know, I deal with a population, you know, yesterday, as a matter of fact, I did a screening, and I asked, you know, the gentleman I was screening, you know, I was asking him about, you know, his family and what, you know, the prior substance use disorder and what have you. And it became a point where he felt uncomfortable, you know, and he expressed it, you know, in terms of his parents. You know, I had asked, you know, would they involved with any type of substance use? And, you know, he wasn't ready to discuss that. And I took a step back and apologized. And, you know, I might have been out of order. You know, I may not have read the room right, or, you know, I don't know, but I just apologized, backed off, you know. But as the evening went on, you know, it got better. You know, I asked him, what does he love to do? And he talked about something clear out of the blue, that he was interested in acting and being a model. I said, oh, okay. And this is an older gentleman, like not as old as me, but he was older. And I was able to discuss with him, you know, I was a SAG member and I started acting in my early 50s, you know, and what have you. And, you know, so so the comfort level, because the whole thing is that I want the relationship and the trust to be good, you know. So whatever that takes, that's what I try to, you know, accomplish.
Thank you, Reggie. Shelley, roll with resistance, the roll with part.
Yeah, I really appreciate what Reggie just said about relationship. I often say that recovery coaching is all about relationship, and the rolling with part to me is just having that empathy, that understanding for where they're at, and really getting curious. And with that curiosity, inviting a deeper exploration for them, right? And kind of walking alongside them in that, with that curiosity, with that exploration, and not resisting that resistance myself, like just being in the flow with them, and offering that empathy and compassion, and just accepting where they're at.
So I do like what you shared about the fist meeting the hand and the resistance. And sometimes it's almost like if you rolled the hand this way and just rolled it underneath to loosen the fist a little bit. That's an analogy. Also, what are we taught to do when we get caught on fire? Stop, drop, and roll, right? So maybe like if this person is billowing fire and you're starting to get stop, drop, and roll, Yeah, Khalees.
Whenever I think about rolling with resistance, I think about a recovery I had, and she was doing really great. And then she just kind of plateaued where she was just complacent. And we kept meeting. And then I just asked her one day, I said straight up, "Are you ready to make change?" And she was just like, "Whoa, nobody's ever asked me that. Like, holy mess, can I like think about it and come back to you?" And I'm like, "Yeah, like I'll be here when you're ready to talk, And then she came back and she said, I've just realized I've been doing the same thing for 10 years and I don't know if I'm ready to make change. And like we had that whole discussion, but like I just straight up asked her because I was like, okay, we've been meeting for 4 weeks now, nothing has changed. Are you ready? So I think that was kind of it.
So in the science, right, in the motivational interviewing tells us to roll with resistance. It tells us, and I love what Reggie said about not getting it to the point where you're arguing because you're avoiding argument as well. Is there ever a time where you don't roll with resistance? And can you talk to me about that? Is it always about rolling with resistance? Charlotte.
One thing that comes to mind when you say that
Mm-hmm.
is I've been where you're talking about from my perspective right now, and it might be a day where I'm off. There are still times that I'm sure we all have that something's not right with us, or something that happens might have triggered something. I'm not sure. It's just we're still. I guess I feel like I'll always have those days every once in a while for some reason, and I just keep my mouth shut. If it's something like that, I just try to still be, my very courteous and polite, or and I just tuck it in the back for a later conversation, or just try to ease out of it gracefully, not to let them know anything, but just I feel like I something that day is I know it's not the time or something like that.
Gotcha. Thank you. Shelley.
With regards to, is that what we always do? There may be a time, an opening. And again, so much of this, it's like the art of recovery coaching, right? Really kind of using intuition and wisdom. Is there an opening possibly here where I might be able to, develop that discrepancy? So asking those really good questions that this person, what is that good question that they really need to hear themselves answer? And also using silence. Like I think one of the most powerful things as a coach that we can use is the power of silence. Like just that's where that question lingers in the air and they have to think about it and they wrestle with it. And maybe they get to the other side, right? So very much trusting the process, but asking those that one question that can be powerful in their process.
I think what you said about silence is very true too in facilitating CCAR curricula. You put the question out there and you don't have to respond. So wait till somebody responds, or do something snarky like, "This is where you take your mouse and you scroll down." Bianca.
I kind of pressed the raise hand by accident, but as
not by accident.
I mean, I'm thinking about something that happened yesterday. So I was supporting someone yesterday, and there was she had some recovery time, and she was back in sort of clean time for 10 days. So she was struggling already, and she's just moved and she found some drugs basically, and she took them yesterday. So she was in a bad way, and I've never spoken to this lady before on a call, and I very vaguely knew her. But the theme of what was coming up around her not being able to reach out for support was a lot to do with her shame and her guilt. And she was identifying that she's had a lifelong sense of insecurity and a lack of feeling safe. And because, you know, the most important thing is she needs to feel safe before she can venture out. And it went on for quite some time. And at some point there was an opportunity, because I'm thinking, if your emphasis is always on feeling safe, but stepping out of that will never feel safe, and you're not really going to be able to get support or get well unless you take that risk, are you ever going to be able to get there? So I'm thinking, I'm looking for the opportunity to put that question to her. And it was such a it was like such a light bulb moment for her, because she'd never really thought about how her need for safety was the very thing that was getting in her way. Although the need was valid, and we spent a long time talking about her lack of safety and feelings of unsafety, but at the same time, you know, so that was for me, I was looking for the opportunity to, as you say, develop that discrepancy and not roll with it, because I could see just how important it may be for her to think about that. And I was really grateful that I had the opportunity to do that. So I think that might be what you're talking about, Phil. I could be wrong.
No, you are. That's you met resistance in a different way. I've recently watched, my family has been saying for like 3 years, you'd love Ted Lasso, Phil. You got to watch it. You got to watch it. You got to watch it. And I finally ended up watching it. And of course, I absolutely loved it. But last time we talked about boundaries, right? And so sometimes when recoverees put up resistance, we've run into their boundary, right? Whatever they may be. So there was this line where Ted Lasso was talking about talking to his boss, the powerful female club owner, right? And someone said, I can't remember, I'm paraphrasing that, she's difficult to talk to. And Ted Lasso says, well, she has fences, but I just jump over them, you know? And I was like, wow, what an analogy for like people we work with. And I realized that I'm a fence jumper. And I don't, you know, like in a kind of I hope it's a good way, but when people are putting up boundaries and fences, I open the gate or I hop over and I ask one more question, and then I can judge what they are. But it takes a real skill to be a fence jumper and then pose a question that doesn't get you kicked out or shot or something like that, you know? So anybody have any stories about that or something along those lines? Kurt?
One other story on that, but it did make me think, it's an interesting analogy. It did make me think I would be inclined not to jump over the fence at the risk of jumping into a space that they feel is too personal, but rather, what can I do to get them to open the gate?
Right. Well said. I like that too. And that's our art of recovery coaching. You know, we don't always run into a fence and walk away, although that's what the science says for the most part. A lot of times people are used to having their fences knocked over or destroyed. But so we have to be creative about that. But I love that analogy, Kurt. That's beautiful. How can I get them to open this gate? Bianca, your hand's still up. You got something else? No? Khalees, you're furiously scribbling, so you know I got to ask you something about all that.
I like what Kurt said too, because I think like that as well. Like I'm kind of like, and I feel like over the years, I've become more confident in myself where I'm okay to niggle a little, you know, if that makes sense, you know, to like
jiggle on the gate.
Yeah, like I'm definitely the jiggler, like where I'm like, tell me why you feel that way, you know?
Right.
And so it's just nice to see. And then I think too, like whenever I ask those questions, it's like you can see something switch in people when then they start to be like, oh, and it's like they lean in and they're like going for it. And so then that's whenever I know the niggling has finally like pushed through. And I think that's just a beautiful experience if you've seen that. So.
I think too, we were talking about in the Advanced Academy, there's a whole issue, a whole module on vulnerability. And, you know, we went back and forth, but one of the questions we ultimately found to ask ourselves, are we willing to be 100% vulnerable? It's not that we are 100% vulnerable. Are we willing if the situation warrants it? And I think, you know, I think that's also goes with rolling with resistance, right? That we have to be 100% willing to roll with the resistance. And that would be our art, but are there times where we, you know, we push back, hold our hand out on top of the fist, hop over a fence, jiggle the gate, knock on the door? So when you meet resistance, there's many, many ways to deal with it. One of the first ones is kind of keep like, I don't necessarily want to battle, I'll roll with it, but I might test this defense a little bit, you know, to see what's actually there before, because we're not doing, and this is the key, we're not doing it for our own ego, right? I'm going to see if I can knock down this wall, you know, I'm going to see if I can crash this, you know, breach this stone castle because I'm the powerful warrior and I'm going to knock this down and get inside your castle. No, that's not why we're doing it. We're doing it because we genuinely feel that there is some intuition or some reason that would dramatically benefit the recovery, you know? And if the resistance is fierce, we're not going to battle fierce resistance. We're going to roll with it. Like if you find a topic like Reggie was talking about parents or something, we're just gonna roll with it, roll on to the next topic, right? Okay, we're not going to talk about this one now. I'm not going to push mommy and daddy issues with a recovery if they don't want to talk about it. Why would I do that? I'm not a counselor or a therapist or anything, but I would roll with that. So anybody have any other thoughts about what you're thinking now about rolling with resistance and boundaries and how you handle resistance? Carver, I haven't heard from you in a little while. I always like to hear from you.
Well, you know, I think that the thing that was rolling with me was meeting the person where they are. Is what space are they presenting to me? And then how can I find this commonality, this common ground so that we can agree to proceed? And that's what rolling with resistance means to me is where can we find the common ground?
Love that. Thank you, Carver. Alex.
So to me, it's letting go. I don't have to make decisions for them, right? I think it's about their own life. Once I start putting a resistance on their resistance, then I'm trying to control their life, right? So I don't need to control nobody, right? My job is educate, challenge assumptions, provide you know, resources, and educate. You know, once I stay with that and I stay with a three-legged stool, then I manage my own stuff, right? There's always going to be things that are, you'd be like, wow, I wish he would get this, but you know, it's on their time. It's not on my time. And I got to go back to me. I always have to go back to me. How I was when I was in early recovery. Did I put resistance to the folks that were trying to help me? Oh, definitely. Right. So I need to understand that I can't meet them where they're at because I'm not there no more. Right. Like my life has changed, but I can ask and tell me and find out where they tell me where they're at, you know, and then just, you know, provide the resources that they need. And I'll always ask the good question. Okay, how do you want me to support you with that?
Right.
You know, what do you think is best for you? You know, where do you see yourself in your recovery? You know, it's always that motivation to, you know, get you out of trouble. When you're trying to control and you try to put your own bias in between, then you're always going to have problems. And that's not what we do, right? You know, I need to always manage my own stuff. I always need to look at myself. When I started putting myself in the middle of certain things, then it goes back. I'm not treating people as resources. So they the resource. They know best what's best for their lives, not me. You know,
Well
I'm only
said.
going to provide the resource that's available to them.
Yeah, thank you. Khalees.
I think that like whenever I think about rolling with resistance and like situations that might have come up, people are normally coming out due to an unmet need. So if I can have empathy and compassion and really understand what need is not being met, it might be fear, it might be scarcity, it might be whatever it is. How can I comfort them and ask those questions to then walk with them on that journey?
Mm-hmm. Cool. So I hope, Michael, you got anything else you wanted to add with this conversation?
This is a great conversation, right? And this is something that, like you said, we don't really talk, we don't get deep into that conversation of rolling with resistance. And I've had so many people, like working in the emergency department, I've had people that they were resistant, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I had to develop different arts of I like what Kurt said, knocking on that gate and asking them, can I come in? Right?
Mhm.
Because you don't want to intrude in somebody's proper, like in somebody's their boundaries, right? I don't know why I keep thinking it was like a few months ago where I looked out of my office. There's a big window, and across there's a field, and there's this gentleman just laying there. And for like an hour, I was thinking like, yo, this guy's dead, yo, because he hasn't moved at all, man. Right? So I go, like, my curiosity just kept like, go see this guy, see if he's all right. So I grabbed a bottle of water, I grabbed some snacks from here, and I went across the street. And this dude was so vulnerable, man. Like, this guy was like laid out like that. And I go, hey, and he like jumps up and then he just like relaxes when he like sees who it is. And I know that the gentleman, I've worked with the gentleman before, right? So when he looks at me, I was like, yo, I just came over here to see if you was okay, man. And he was like, yeah, I'm good. I'm just sleeping. And I was like, I got water and I got snacks. I'll leave it right here in the shade. And he goes, thank you. And goes right back to sleep. And I was like, damn, how vulnerable is this dude? Like, anybody could come up and just do anything to him. And he's just like, whatever. And I'm like, Dad, you know, and you start thinking about that, like being vulnerable and open out. You open out, like anybody can attack you, man. And you're vulnerable enough just to lay there and just be like, whatever. So I don't know why that came to mind, right? Where I've worked with that gentleman before, and he was like, nah, I didn't call you here for no change. And it was like, all right. Like, here's my card. When you're ready, then you give me a call whenever you're ready. But it's just,
it's even an assumption that this person will be ready someday. Like, there are people that just want to live that life. And, you know, they, for whatever reason. I mean, I think about, ever see the movie Leaving Las Vegas with Nicolas Cage? And like, could you imagine being his recovery coach? What do you do there? You got nothing to work with. I mean, there's just nothing. But it's desperate and desolate, but there's, I guess, you know, sometimes you have to just be willing to let go too, like Alex was saying. You know, what's my stuff, what's their stuff? All we can ever be sure of is our intention, right? Our intention was to share and offer this thing we call recovery, and some people will accept it and some people won't. I mean, that's just the way it is.
Yeah,
it was certainly true for me. So I want to thank you all for your time. I appreciate each and every one of you for sharing. I thought it was a fruitful conversation, and hopefully I'll see we'll be doing it again next month, Coaching for Coaches. So I hope you have a wonderful day. Take care, everybody.